Last fall, Romans hit the streets to protest when the rising price of wheat made staples like pasta, pizza and bread go up by as much as 20%. A one-day pasta strike organised by consumer groups failed miserably, but Italians are preparing to tighten their belts.
La farina, l'olio, il sale, tutta questa deve necessariamente ritornare a dei livelli accessibili anche ai poveri.
If you think the cost of food makes living la dolce vita tough for Italians, then imagine how it affects these displaced people in Darfur, people struggling from the effects of war in Afghanistan, or these hurricane survivors in Bangladesh.
We can give up desserts, we can give up meat once or twice a week. For people making less than $1 a day, there's nowhere to retreat. And so what we are seeing is in places where people were not desperate before, more people hungry, more people cutting out vital parts of their diet, including some going to one meal a day. And so in those cases, we really feel we need a strategy to work with those governments and communities to help people meet this increased need.
Josette Sheeran is the executive director for the UN's World Food Programme, the world's largest humanitarian aid organisation and the UN's frontline emergency relief agency. Each year, it feeds around 70 million people. Since taking office in 2007, she has had to hit the ground running to confront the challenge that high food prices creates for the hungry poor. In March, she visited the Chicago Board of Trade to talk to traders.
We buy $640 million worth of grain every year in the developing world, but there's not a lot of order to the markets. So we're here to learn, too, about how the world can do this better.
On top of the insecurity, on top of droughts, which are often followed by floods, on top of the exodus since January 2007 of 750,000 people from Mogadishu into the countryside like this, there are rising food prices. And these rising food prices may well push many people who are already living on the edge into destitution and may even lead to an increased loss of life.
The legs are even. Yeah.
One of the drivers of increased prices at the supermarket is the rising cost of fuel needed to transport food. Another is that food usually destined for human consumption is increasingly being used to produce biofuels. The World Food Programme's entire budget is voluntarily funded by emergency appeals. So the falling dollar and increase in food prices have made the already challenging task of feeding the hungry even more difficult.
We may have to either cut rations or cut the number of people that we feed in Somalia because of these increased costs. So what we very much hope for is that donors will be able to step forward to cover these increased costs so that we can continue to help these people who are in such desperate need.
Especially since the number of hungry people in the world is increasing, sometimes in places where food aid hasn't previously been necessary.
The soaring food prices affect us in two ways. One is our own budget to reach the 73 million people we're scheduled to reach this year, is being hit badly by the high food prices. So since June, our cost of procuring food, which we do in over 70 developing nations, has gone up an average of 40%. That means we can put less food in the cup or in the ration unless we get additional help.
Food prices are going through the roof right now, which means that every day that passes we can buy less food than the day before. And unfortunately, this means we're having to make painful decisions in every one of the 78 countries we're in, including Cambodia. So 450,000 children will no longer get lunch in school if we don't get urgent help soon. We are beginning to see more and more civil unrest, and I think it's pretty clear that a hungry man is an angry man. And as food becomes more and more difficult to access, I think we can expect to see more incidents of civil unrest. And WFP has determined that if asked, we are in a position to step in and ramp up some of our social safety nets to help in these emergency situations, to cool things down so that longer-term solutions can then come in.
Ironically, one remedy to the problem may be found in the same places where the worst hunger exists. In Uganda, small independent farmers have difficulties gaining access to the market, especially if the community's infrastructure is underdeveloped.
Would you like to show us
WFP has been seeking out small collectives and associations of farmers to purchase food aid locally. This allows them to buy at a lower price, reduces transport costs, and in turn engages small farmers and develops the local economy as a whole. For WFP, the ability to buy food aid locally may not be the silver bullet it needs to stem the rising costs of food. But a little goes a long way if it can help more people help themselves.